Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to another instalment in the Sydney Railroad build. It's been a while since I made any videos down here, so to be perfectly honest, I can't even remember what was in the last instalment. For this week's video, I am going to make a start on framing the upper deck of the peninsula. And no, the title of the video does not refer to the frigid northern areas of Michigan, where I lived before I moved down here. Anyway, without further ado, let's just head out to the workshop and get to work. My task for today is to start framing in the upper deck of the peninsula. This level's clamped here to make sure that I get the fascia for the upper deck directly above that of the lower deck. It looks better that way. I've got to build a frame that goes in here, spans the next two cantilever brackets, and there'll be an extension on the back for a short distance to go meet the other side of the harbour frame, and then it'll come forward about 10.5 inches to go around the central wall. I have all the dimensions I need, so let me build that frame and I will be right back. Well, here is that first frame built, or mostly built anyway. There's still 3 pieces that I'm not going to install just yet. There are 2 cross joists missing, one here and one there, and they are the ones that go alongside the cantilever brackets, which I have built. These 2 pieces are glued together. That is the one that goes in the middle of the frame, and these 2 pieces remain separate. That's the one that goes at a joint between the next 2 lower level frames. The other piece I'm not installing yet is the spacer in there. I want to give myself options just in case the other frame is slightly out of parallel. I will install it and then cut that piece to fit. Next thing to do is to install these brackets. Well, there is that section properly installed, leveled and everything. It's a bit of a fight to get it in, mainly because a good portion of the work I had to do while jammed into a 10-inch wide space, which made access kind of awkward. But I think that's the most difficult one along this side. It should be a little bit easier from now on. It's still going to be more complex than the benchwork I did on this side of the room. That's because each one is custom instead of being full the same. I've got to go in now and get some dimensions for the next frame and also work out exactly where the joists can go, and I will be right back. Well, the next 2 cantilever brackets are now installed. These are a little bit different. They have to be removable for access, so there's no glue in the top or down there. You see most of the screws have black circles around them. That is a reminder of which ones have to come out to dismantle the railroad. Anyway, the next task is to install the next section. It's currently sitting over on the workbench. I've already built it, so let me go get it and I'll be right back. Well, that is the second section installed. I haven't bolted it together yet. Still got temporary clamps in there, and they can stay there tonight. I've had enough. I'm going to go in. My back is killing me. I need to sit down. And Zeus wants his food anyway. So I'm going to go in and feed him. And I will see you again tomorrow. Well, here is the next frame, or as much of it as I can build at the workbench. What I've got to do next is hang it in the right place, temporary legs and supports, build the permanent supports up to it, and finish framing it in situ around the helix. This cutout at the back and the one at the end, I hope are in the right place and the right size. It's where the upper level of the helix cuts through this frame. The back stringer can be taller because that is under the paper mill, which is 2.5 inches higher than the main yard. So that allows me to maintain strength at that point. Around here and through the middle, the framing is going to be a little bit light. All it's got to do is hold the plywood flat during transit, because I will arrange supports on both sides of the helix, both inside and outside, to maintain structural integrity. Anyway, let me put this in the right place and I'll be right back. Installing this frame in the right place was one of those situations where it seemed that everything I needed to do had to do something else first. Anyway, the key to getting it all right was to put this temporary block in here, which holds this end of the frame firmly in the right place so that the front edge is exactly plumb over the lower level. With that done, and a straight board clamp to the front to hold the front edge in alignment, now I can get to work. Next thing I've got to do is put the cantilever bracket in here and the joist that goes alongside it, and then I can build the stringer that joins it up with that end. And once that's all in, then everything else will fall into place. So let me get back to work and I'll see you again soon. Here is that section with everything in front of the helix framed in. I've still got to extend this joist all the way to the back. I've got the piece cut. Most of it has to be cut out in the middle, but I will put a horizontal flange at the top to make up the strength. And then once I've done that, I've got to add a similar frame in the back and figure out exactly how I'm going to support it. I know more or less, but I've still got to measure it and work out exact dimensions, etc. So let me get back to work, and I'll make at least one more recording before I go in. Well, that is this frame mostly done. I've got the bolts in and all the rear framing. It doesn't need cross bearers on the back bit because the bits that run parallel with the track are less than a foot apart, so they do the same job. I've still got to put horizontal top flanges in besides these two that are almost cut out, and I'm going to do a short piece in there as well after that block has been removed. I thought I was finished earlier, but you can see there's extra screw holes. I had this longitudinal piece right in the middle of that gap, and then I realized that this part of the helix was impossible to reach. So by moving it a couple of inches further back, I've now got space to get my hand up in there if I ever need to. Anyway, I've had enough fun for one day. I'm going to go in and feed Zeus and continue working inside. So I will see you tomorrow. Well, this section of framing is finally complete. Overall, it took me more than a day to complete it, but then I knew it would. On previous railroads where I've had helixes running through the bottoms of framing, it's always been a lot of fun. But it's now properly supported everywhere. All these cutouts in the framing don't matter because I've got supports both sides of them. All they have to do is hold the plywood top together during transportation. I have brackets on the inside of the helix that will support it in 3 places. And I've got another leg here. Let me go around to the other side and show you. Well, here I am inside the helix. Here's that leg I told you about. It's directly above the support on every level of the helix. I have this leg in here which is glued to the side of the helix and rests on the base. And this holds it not only at the right height but in the right place laterally. I have a similar one at this end, except that that only has to be a support. It doesn't have to hold it laterally as well. And this one here, the simplest of the brackets, supports the back of this frame and ultimately the one that goes next to it. And it is now rock solid. Not quite sure what I'm going to get on with next. Next frame is another complex one. I've also got some framing to take care of in the far distant corner at the end of the aisle where the curved fascia needs to go. I think I'm going to go in and work on the design for this next frame. So stay tuned and I will be right back. Well, here is the perimeter of the next frame to go in. It's 7 feet long by 5.5 feet wide. And once again, the helix has to cut through the corner of it. There's also two of those long support beams that I talked about when I built the backdrops that go right through the middle of it. And I haven't cut out for the back yet because I'm going to put it in place and then mark them accurately. I don't want to risk them being in the wrong place. So all I can really do is build the perimeter. Even this joist across the middle isn't part of the actual frame. That's just a handle, because without it, there's nowhere to pick it up. There's just nothing anywhere near the center of gravity. So once I get it in position, that will come out. Anyway, the next job is to carry it over and offer it up to the railroad. So let me do that, and I will be right back. Well, here is this benchwork frame positioned accurately, both leveled, plumbed. It took me 2 attempts to get it in place because I forgot to do those cutouts for the cross bearers the first time round. So I marked them, took it back to the bench and redid it. I'd have had to have gone back anyway because for some reason I miscalculated that cutout. It wasn't quite big enough. I have a temporary screw into the top of the backdrop framing that holds it in the right place. I'm also going to clamp a straight edge to the front before I frame the interior, just like I did on the previous one. But I think the next thing I'm going to do is put the bolts in, then I can get rid of those clamps at that end because they're kind of in the way. So let me do that quickly and I will be right back. With the 2 cross bearers attached to the main beams, this frame is now rock solid. Now all I've got to do is finish filling in all the gaps. So let me get on with that and I'll be right back. Well, that is this large rectangular frame almost done. I've still got a little bit of framing to do in that corner, but I will fill that in once I've got the frame the other side of the paper mill, because most of that will be at paper mill height. That big square opening at the back there is an access hatch. If you recall from the design video, there is a deep seam here with an industrial spur curving away into the distance and the roof of a large warehouse being removable as a hidden access opening. The end of this piece of framing rests on a support block down there and it's screwed up from the bottom. I've done the same thing in this corner. Because of these deep cross beams that support the frame, there does have to be a gap in the frame, so the plywood deck will hold that framing in alignment for transportation, and then as soon as it's reinstalled it becomes structurally sound again. This bracket in here may look as though it's not that necessary, being only about 15 inches away from this main beam, but I do need additional support for this benchwork joint because of the long gap here. The next support bracket is over here about 6 feet away. Anyway, I'm going to go inside for a bit now. It's freezing cold out here. It's snowing this morning. I don't feel like doing any more, but I did want to get this frame done. Besides, I've also got to design the next bit. So let me go in and figure out what the next step is, and I will be right back. Well, that's all for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed the show and found it useful or interesting or both, and I hope to see you back next week, where I will continue where I left off. So in the meantime, thanks for watching, and bye for now.